Welcome everybody. This is Terry Wage, Generator Coaching, Michael Gabriel of Mach 10 Marketing, Christine McGinley of Generator Coaching, my better half. And we are talking about a topic today that is really something that everyone has to realize. And that is, we are in the business of solving problems. Every person who is selling anything, any person who is in business, is selling a solution to a problem. And so we have to learn to love solving problems for people, and that's what's going to help us to become wealthy. It's what's going to help our businesses grow. It's what's going to help us to be able to have the lifestyle that we want. If we're not solving problems, then we're not doing our job. And each one of us has to start looking at this idea of, instead of going and selling something, instead of trying to get people to buy, we have to go from a different point of view of, what is the problem you solve? And so we're going to have a little conversation around the problem you solve and what that means. And hey, there I am, along with Christine. And so we're going to be looking at and talking about, with everybody, the problem you solve and what the difference is when you go to talk to somebody trying to get business versus solving problems. And so, Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, let's see, the problem I solve, well, I help people, take their product or service or something they're selling, and I give them a digital, we'll say, a digital lead machine. So from my perspective, digital marketing, I want to help bring in leads. So I fill the gap between what they're doing now and them kind of reaching the next level. I think that's what I do.
So, how many people know what Michael does?
One person?
From talking to him before, but what Michael is doing is kind of a clever point out, is like there's a lot of ambiguity in that. The way I would say what Michael does and the problem he solves is, he brings more customers to you that are your ideal client, so that you have better chances to move them from potential lead to a qualified buyer to then a customer. And that's what I say he does. And what Christine and I do, well, Christine, do you want to say what you do, or do you want me to? I like it when you say it. It sounds better when you say it. And so I will say it. We actually help you to grow your business by taking potential leads, turning them into qualified buyers, showing you how to qualify your buyers and how to move them into raving fans. And so any business that is looking to grow, they want to have people who buy from them. And so we solve that problem, and we help you build and scale your business through sometimes a marketing message, if that's your problem. Sometimes it's about where to get leads. And I actually send a lot of people to Michael when they're having a leads issue, because that's one thing he deals with. And then if it's a sales issue, we teach sales. We also have partners who are helping us with our sales so that we can go and talk to more people. The idea is, when you know what problem you solve, then you can talk to more people about the problems they have. Right? And so, Tom, what problem do you solve? Catch you off guard.
We have to unmute Tom.
I help people. I help people find better housing. So that's what I do.
Very good. And so one of the big things that I love about understanding the problem you solve is, you stop looking at everybody around you as potential clients, and you can ask them just a couple of questions. And like, Tom helps people find how, hey, are you happy with where you're living? Well, yes, I am. Would you ever think about moving to a nicer place? Well, no, I don't. Okay, you're not my client. And it's very simple, and you don't have to get into a long, drawn out trying to build rapport to find out if they want to sell their house. And so it's a very quick thing. And what I've seen from a lot of people that we start working with, especially when they're newer in business, is they try to sneak up on the people in a clever kind of conversation. And they start talking about this and talking about that, and the conversation goes on forever before they say what they do and the problem they solve, or start asking exploratory questions to find out if that person has that problem. And so they spend a lot of time having a conversation that goes nowhere because they're either afraid to say what problem they solve or they don't know the problem they solve. So who else solves a problem in this group right here? Matt, what problem do you solve?
Well, very similar to Tom's. I more or less help people get rid of their houses if they're in a distressed situation. But I also solve another problem now, which I will be beginning. I will be helping people solve their credit problems. I've joined a group called United Wealth Educators. And I will be, so more or less in conjunction with my business, I will be doing that as well. So
I would love to hear more.
Either
about
way,
that
I'm helping
offline.
people. And if, yes, you will. I just began that. That's what we're going to have actually, you and I will, and probably Michael and I will too. So, because it's
Awesome.
part of what he and I talked about some time ago.
Awesome.
So,
and so what I liked about what Matt said, I got mixed up with my corners. Matt, I did it again. Matt is basically saying that he helps people get out of their distressed properties. Now, the funny thing is that's very different from what Tom Osbeck does, but they're both in real estate. Because what Tom does is he helps people find houses that they're liking and move to a new location as a realtor, where Matt actually is buying houses to flip them. And so it's a similar kind of idea, but they have different clients.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about why we talk about problems we solve? Is that because people want their problems solved, or like some people don't want to bring up other people's problems and pain?
I think that's a very good question, and I would love to hear your take on that.
Alrighty. My take is that the problem is what it is, and the pain's how it's kind of affecting their lives. So if you think about the problem you solve, well, it's a way that it either makes their life better. Like Tom said, he wanted to find them a better home. Matt wanted to relieve them of their stress, of their distressed home. Michael finds that his clients have a really great product, but not everybody knows about it. So how can he target the people that are interested in the problem that that product or service solves?
Absolutely.
And then people need to get known. So that's Jennifer focuses on that. And Jamie, trademarks, getting your business set up. But if you just drive that I can help you get your business set up, you're not, or grow your business, you're not saying what happens in the pain and the problem. The problem is that they're feeling defeated. They're insecure. They're not sleeping at night. That they won't get known. They won't be famous. They're going to have to file bankruptcy because their credit's so bad that they can't go buy a house. They can't buy a new car, and life is just spinning out for them. So by us coming in and not necessarily being the hero, but guiding them forward into that better life, the financial freedom, if that's a thing for them, leaving the legacy, like how are we impacting their lives by solving some problem that they have? But we must understand the problem that they have in their eyes, in their shoes, to be able to connect with them.
Absolutely. And along with what Christine is saying is, when we learn to love solving the problems, before we can solve the problems, we have to really be able to explore what problems they have. And one of the things that I think that I've seen for years and years and years working in the mental health field before, and then the business world, is people don't like to talk about their problems. Not because they don't believe that the problem is there, not because the problem is they don't want to burden somebody, but really the biggest reason that people don't want to talk about their problems is because they re-trigger themselves when they start talking about their problems. And so, I don't know, has anybody ever had a problem and when they're watching a TV show or something, or reading a book or doing something, the problem seems like it's far away. But then as soon as you start talking about the problem, your eyes well up, you start to feel the experience again, you start to freaking get angry, you start to have a reaction. Well, that reaction is because the problem isn't solved, it's buried deeply. And so people don't want to talk about the problems. They avoid them. They move away from them. They talk about, the problem is gone. It's no big deal anymore because I dealt with it. It was 10 years ago. But the reality is the event may have happened 10 years ago. The event may have happened 20 years ago. The event may have happened last week. But our emotions are a storehouse. We hold it inside. And then anytime somebody says something, does something that reminds us of it, a certain smell. How many people have ever walked into a house and it smelled like when you were a kid? Like cookies baking or bread, or the big one for me is Thanksgiving. When somebody's cooking a Thanksgiving turkey, you go right back to when you were a kid. Not to the oven. You go back to when you were a kid in your mind. And that is us having something anchored way deep inside of us. And it happens with everything. And so people don't want to talk about what's going on in their business, in their relationships, in whatever's going on because it triggers them. And so when we actually can love solving problems for people, we want to actually step back for a minute and go, okay, I don't want to solve it. I want to explore what's going on for them. And like what Christine was talking about, where is this showing up in your life? How is this affecting your other relationships? How is this putting a damper on the interactions that you have from here on out with the people? How is it affecting your sales if it's a business thing? How is it affecting how you serve people? If you get triggered in a sales conversation, so you have somebody else do it, what happens when you have some other situation that you got to confront on? Because one of the big things about a sales conversation is it's confronting somebody with something that's uncomfortable for you and uncomfortable for them. And so if we're having that discomfort in the sales conversation, what are they feeling? And if something happens, can we actually talk about it? Or do we create a service issue now? Does this make sense? And when we think about what makes the most sense, being able to step into those uncomfortable conflicts, being able to ask the hard questions. There was a couple of weeks ago where I was on a call, and I don't remember who it was. It's fuzzy. But I asked the person how much their business make, and they told me, and it wasn't a problem. No, I asked them how much they personally made, and it wasn't a problem for them. And then I asked them how much their business makes, and she shut down. Like, why are you asking me that? And got very defensive, protective. And I was very honest in that if I don't know how much you're making, I don't know where you're starting from, I don't know where you want to go to, I have no idea what the gap is. And so these questions I'm asking are really for me to explore where you're at and how far it's going to be so we can be much more in reality when we talk about a plan for you. It makes perfect sense. But what happens a lot of times, and when I first got into sales, when somebody say that, it rocked me. And all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, I don't know how to answer that. But it's because I was uncomfortable with conflict. As you get more comfortable with conflict, you get more comfortable with being able to talk about the problems that people are having, the problems that you solve, and exploring where this shows up, we start to really be able to solve the problems for the people. And the big thing is when we're asking those questions, and this is really important for like real estate agents, because real estate agents, well, I don't know if anybody's heard, but they're a dime a dozen. They're all over the place, right? Coaches now too. Coaches, a dime a dozen. They're all over the place. My God, there's only one traffic person I know, but there's thousands of coaches. One traffic. And so we got this dime a dozen thing. And most of them, and I've talked about this several times, I think I'm on a rant that's going to go for another couple of months, but people are pushing value like it's something that nobody else has. But everybody, and I don't know how many people have been looking at Facebook lately, but everybody's pushing value, and it's the same damn message. It's the same, oh, here's value. You got to talk to your customers. No doubt. Here's value. You gotta really know why you're doing what you're doing. Of course they do. All of this stuff, we all are saying the same thing. But when you stop telling people about all of the value that you're providing, and you start asking some questions and become much more exploratory, attempting to understand where the person's at, being able to identify the problems that those people have and ask them what they've done to solve it, ask them if they want to solve it, be able to understand how it's showing up and getting in their way. Now we can really absolutely enjoy solving problems for people. And the one thing that I've seen happen over and over and over again, especially when I was a therapist working with people, is, the couple would come in and the man would say that she's always trying to solve my problems. No, that's not how it happened. Usually it's the woman would say, he's always trying to solve my problem. He doesn't ever listen to me. And how many people have caught themselves solving a problem before they really know what the problem is? Like, oh, I know exactly what to do. I know I do it. I'm a goddamn therapist by trade. I have lived in the exploration of problems. And in my own life, Christine might be having a problem. I'll fix it. She's like, that's not the problem. Oh, oops. I did it again. And what we're really doing is we're pre-firing. We're shooting before we aim. And so we want to step back and go, wait a minute. What's the problem? How's it showing up? And what's really cool, when we start to really grasp an idea of what's going on with them, then we don't have to come up with the solution. We work together to come up with the solution. Christine.
Kind of as you're sharing that, sometimes it's, well, I was in a women's group. I'm active in a women's group out here. It's Women to Women. Anyone can join if you're a woman. And we have masterminds and coffee conversations. There's all sorts of things. And the woman that was presenting was talking about, her name's Dr. K. She's a local organizational psychologist, and she was sharing about, sometimes we're in the top level looking down in our lives, and we build levels as we go, and how often we just go down to the basement. And it's funny, the different mindsets that are in there. Someone was like, well, what's below the basement? Sometimes I don't even think I'm in the basement. And the joke was, is it crawl space? Is it, where the sewer is? But anyway, one of the comments in the side chat was, why are we so eager to help other people solve problems, but not always willing to ask for help to solve our problems? And I thought that was really profound. And unfortunately, the facilitator didn't answer that. So I would love to hear Dr. Wager, Dr. Terry's take on, why are we so eager to help others, but not willing to ask for help ourselves?
I think that is a phenomenal question. I have no answer for that.
Yeah, it's tough.
No, I'm just kidding. I do have an answer for that.
Gotcha.
And here it is
One problem.
because
Oh,
it's much easier to work in a projection, watching something outside of us. Kevin M said ego. I love that answer. Eliminator of great opportunities. And I'm going to expand on what that really means is when I can solve something outside of myself. And okay, so I'm going to go way to the side for a minute. When I was a therapist, they were having me learn how to do play therapy, which basically this idea of play therapy. Now, I'm telling you right now, this is a way sideways kind of conversation for a second, but I'm going to bring it back. And so I was taught that you do this play therapy for kids because what they're going to be doing in play therapy is they're going to be working through their problem in the play, and then you as the therapist talk about what they're doing, and magically they're going to gain mastery over it. Now for me, I think it's totally a bad idea because what they really end up doing, as far as my clinical understanding goes, is they actually get really good at making a habit of avoiding whatever's going on instead of talking about it. And so for me, I didn't like that. But when we look at that play therapy model, that's what people are doing when they're trying to solve somebody else's problem if they have the same problem. They're trying to gain mastery over how to handle it for somebody else first instead of really look at what they're doing or identify their emotions or go in there because, as we were talking about before, we want to solve problems quickly so we don't have to be triggered by them. And so the funny thing is, our whole universe of humanity is emotional and we get triggered all of the time. And so when Michael has a problem and I don't know how to deal with it, all of a sudden I have a problem. If I've got a problem and Jennifer's around and I don't know how to deal with it, now Jennifer has a problem. Our problems are contagious. And what's the problem? Not the event. The problem is I don't like the way I feel. And people love to talk about negative emotions. They do not exist. We'll see you next week. Build your business and profit.
Thank you, Terry.